Hey YouTube, this is Alexander, and today I'm going to be giving you my full video comparison between the Nexus 6 and the OnePlus One. So let's go ahead and get right on into it. So the OnePlus One and Nexus 6 are two very different devices from companies with very different mentalities. On the one hand, the Nexus 6 is a behemoth packing a 6-inch display and a resolution of 2560 by 1440 with a price tag of about $700 unlocked from Google Play, while the OnePlus One from OnePlus contrasts that with a 5.5-inch 1080p display coming in at around $300 unlocked. But what, if anything, are you missing out on if you opt for the latter? Let's go ahead and find out. So let's go ahead and start our journey with design and feel in the hand. Now the Nexus 6 has a nice curved back and sweet dimple, but it's massive and can be difficult if not impossible to operate with one hand comfortably. The Nexus 6 also has a more premium feel with the heft and middle edge and buttons, but that heft might come at a price. Meanwhile, the OnePlus One is smaller but less ergonomic, although much easier to use one-handed. The OnePlus One also features a plastic back that is swappable for different backs, but feels very sturdy, and the faux metal trim around the display looks nice. The OnePlus One also doesn't have any problems sitting flat on a table like the Nexus 6 does. So despite the Nexus 6 more premium feel, I'd say that the OnePlus One beats it out in feel in the hand, or at least one-hand use. Now onto the speakers. The speakers are undoubtedly better on the Nexus 6. They're louder and front-facing, which means you're going to get a more immersive experience when consuming media on it. Now they're both going to get a little weird at the highest levels, but the OnePlus One features down-facing speakers, which means that if you're consuming media in landscape, it's going to be a lot easier to cover with your right or left palm, and if you're resting your pinky under the device, you also might cover it. Whereas the Nexus 6 doesn't really have that problem since they're front-firing. Now the cameras on both are pretty good, especially for the price of the OnePlus One. But the colors on the OnePlus didn't seem too great. They were a little bit more washed out or not as color accurate as the Nexus 6 pictures, but more on that in the full video review, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Now, the software on both is really similar. The Nexus 6 is running stock Android 5.1, while the OnePlus One has a customized version of Android 5.0.2 named CyanogenMod12s, or CM12s for short. Now, I've already taken a look at stock Android, so I won't spend too much time on that, but CyanogenMod12s is much like stock Android, only with way more customization options out of the box. You can customize things like the quick toggles, the screen off gestures, whether you want to use the on-screen or off-screen keys, and even the entire theme, although it's not without its bugs. There's no doubt much more room to make the OnePlus One a device that's truly yours right out of the box, which is something that I really like. Now onto performance, as a lot of you are probably wondering about. The Nexus 6 sports the Snapdragon 805 processor with the Adreno 420 GPU, while the OnePlus One has the Snapdragon 801 processor and the Adreno 330 GPU. And despite these differences, I gotta say the performance on both is pretty comparable. Now here on the Nexus 6, it handles everyday tasks like multitasking and opening apps, browsing the web, watching videos, texting, all that good stuff, with ease. There really isn't any problem. Now in gaming, it's really nice to play games on here as well, especially with the bigger display, although you can experience the occasional hiccup or stutter here and there. And with the OnePlus One, everything is pretty much the same here. I didn't really notice too much difference between everyday tasks. It handles them with ease, buttery smooth, although in gaming it can have the occasional hiccup as well during heavy graphics, especially during GP2, which I'm playing here, so that is something to take note of, but for the most part I'd say that performance is really similar between the two. Now battery life is surprisingly very similar, if not better, on the OnePlus One. I'm easily able to get through an entire work or school day on the OnePlus One, while that hasn't always been the case, especially as of late on the Nexus 6, despite its slightly larger 3300 mAh battery versus the 3100 mAh battery in the OnePlus One. Now more on battery life in the full OnePlus One review though, so make sure you stick around for that. Now onto the display. Even though the Nexus 6 has a panel with more pixels at 2560 by 1440 versus the 1920 by 1080 on the OnePlus One, unless you're used to a higher resolution display, you're really not going to notice the pixels at all unless you look really closely or you know what you're looking for. Now it is much more saturated on the Nexus 6, but that's going to come down to a personal preference, one that I really prefer, but you may be different. So sure, the Nexus 6 might have a better camera and do better in performance in the long term because of that processor and GPU upgrade, and have a nice big display for typing, browsing the web, or watching videos, but for $300, the OnePlus One is definitely worth considering, especially if you're in the market on a budget. But if you'd like to hold off on that purchase though and find out more about the OnePlus One, stick around for my full video review that's coming soon. But anyway guys, that's pretty much going to end the video. If you enjoyed, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe down there for more, and let me know if you guys have any questions about anything that I didn't cover or that I missed. Follow me on Google+, Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat to see behind the scenes, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.